Welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Sudan's Army Chief, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has sacked his deputy and paramilitary Rapid Support Forces commander, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, better known as Hemedti. Both General Burhan and Hemedti have served as chairman and deputy of the ruling Sovereign Council, respectively, since the October 2021 military coup. In a decree released, General Burhan appointed former rebel leader Malik Agar as his deputy. Mr. Agar is also a Sovereign Council member. He directed the Secretariat of the Sovereign Council and the relevant state authorities to immediately effect this decree. The army chief had last month dissolved the RSF and designated its fighters as rebels after a power struggle erupted between the rival forces. The country has since plunged into deadly fighting and turmoil. A UN Refugee Agency spokesperson says more than 1 million people have been displaced by fighting in Sudan so far, including 250,000 refugees. UN Refugee Agency spokesperson Matthew Saltmarsh said the latest figure includes some 843,000 people displaced internally and around 250,000 who have fled across Sudan's borders. He also added that Egypt has so far received the highest number of Sudanese refugees, with around 110,000 arriving there since the conflict began in April.
Over a month since the fighting have started, we're making an urgent appeal for the safety of civilians and to allow humanitarian aid to move into Sudan as we continue to scale up our response for the over 1 million people who have now been recorded as displaced within Sudan or to neighboring countries. Within Sudan, people are braving danger, notably moving from Khartoum, Darfur, and other unsafe areas. In total, over 843,000 people have been internally displaced within the country, according to the IOM, with neighbouring governments and UNHCR having recorded almost 250,000 crossing borders to date. The numbers of those fleeing to Egypt, which is the largest host, are rapidly increasing. And with partners, we estimate that the numbers currently are around 5,000 every day arrivals. That makes a total of almost 110,000 Sudanese who have entered the country, according to the government. Many of those who have approached us are in a distressed state, having been exposed to violence or traumatic conditions in Sudan and having suffered arduous journeys. Many have also lost or been separated from their family and in need of urgent medical treatment. You mentioned the agreement in Jeddah. Of course, I think that commitment was extremely important, and I'm sure all our other partners in the United Nations would agree that the commitment to allow civilians to flee the fighting and to allow aid, much urgently needed aid, to come into the country is absolutely essential. Unfortunately, what we've seen in the last couple of days is continued horrendous fighting on the ground, shelling, bombing. And it's extremely important that what was committed to in Jeddah is actually enacted on the ground so that much needed aid can come in.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Children's Agency says that 368 children have been forced from their homes in Sudan, and a further 82,000 have fled into neighboring states. It estimates 190 children were killed in the first 10 days of the war, and 1,700 were injured. In Port Sudan on the Red Sea, where thousands of people have fled in the hope of evacuation, a group of artists have volunteered to organize recreational activities for the children to alleviate the pressure on their mental health.
Children, of course, in Sudan are bearing the heaviest brunt of the hostilities. Before the conflict, children were already caught in a perfect storm of crisis on top of crisis. And what this conflict has done is that it has further aggravated the already ongoing health and nutrition crisis, the water scarcity crisis, and it's deepened the learning crisis. I mean, before the conflict, we already had 7 million children between 6 and 18 years of age, of school-going age, out of school. We already had 611,000 kids under 5 suffering from severe acute malnutrition, with 3 million kids under 5 suffering overall from malnutrition. We are, with this crisis, with this conflict, we have seen a nationwide closure of schools and educational institutions. Already we were talking about 7 million kids out of school, 12 million somehow in schools, but very disruptive learning over the last couple of years, particularly in the last year and a half, due to teacher strikes and school closures across the country. You can imagine what the impact now is with the school closures on the mental health, psychosocial well-being of children. Children are under enormous distress, as you can imagine, particularly in the hotspot locations of this conflict due to continuous bombardment and shooting. And we have seen this and experienced this firsthand.
In the meantime, a refugee, Halime Adam Musa, is fleeing Sudan for Chad with her family for a second time. 86-year-old Musa, who is one of the 60 refugees and Sudanese refugees there, mostly women and children, have poured over the border since the war broke out in their country on April the 15th, seeking safety in Chad, which is one of the world's hungriest, most neglected countries. For her, it is a repeat journey. Back in 2003, she had fled her village of Tidalti in Sudan's western region of Darfur when it came under attack by government-backed militia, the ethnic Arabs, who were then targeting farmers and herders. As a mother of 7, she spent 6 years in a refugee camp in Chad with her children before being allocated a small plot of land to farm, which allowed her to get by for 1 decade. But now, the fighting in Sudan between the military and the RSF has again forced her to flee, now living in a makeshift refugee camp that is rapidly spreading into the desert around the sleepy Chadian border town of Kufrun, reeling from the latest loss of her home and livelihood from farming. And away from Sudan, 4 people have been arrested in Tunisia in connection with an attack outside a synagogue during an annual Jewish pilgrimage. It happened just 1 week ago on the historic island of Jerba. 6 people died in that incident. The gunman was a police officer who killed 3 other officers and 2 Jewish worshippers. He was then shot dead himself by a police. Tunisian authorities have not called it a terror attack, but Tunisian President Kais Saied held a meeting with Muslim, the Jewish and Christian faith leaders, stressing that Tunisia was a country of tolerance and coexistence. Authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo say suspected militiamen have killed an engineer and 3 rangers from the Virunga National Park. The Congolese Institute for the Conservation of Nature said the armed men thought to be Mai Mai fighters attacked a convoy of its workers. Virunga is the oldest nature reserve in Africa and a renowned sanctuary for rare species such as mountain gorillas. It has also come under a hideout for Mai Mai militias. Various armed groups have plagued eastern Congo for decades now. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the peacekeepers from the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo had responded to alerts of the presence of Codeco members in several villages in Djougou territory in Ituri province, immediately deploying to the area and prompting the assailants to flee the scene. The deputy spokesperson, Farhan Haq, said that peacekeepers are engaging with communities around the area, notably internally displaced persons and youth leaders, as part of efforts to strengthen protection and early warning mechanisms. On a separate development, Haq said the mission, known as MONUSCO, launched a joint assessment and engagement mission close to the town of Sake in North Kivu province in the context of population displacements caused by M23 activities in the Masisi territory.
We have an update from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Over the last few days, MONUSCO, the UN mission there, responded to alerts of the presence of Codeco members in several villages of Jugu territory in Ituri province. UN peacekeepers immediately deployed to the areas, prompting the assailants to flee the scene. In the meantime, peacekeepers are engaging with communities around Jugu, notably internally displaced persons and youth leaders, as part of efforts to strengthen protection and early warning mechanisms. On a separate development, MONUSCO launched a joint assessment and engagement mission to Bweremana, close to the town of Sake in North Kivu province, in the context of population displacement caused by M23 activities in Masisi territory. Peacekeepers met with civilians and local leaders to better understand their needs and protection concerns. Meanwhile, yesterday, the special representative of the Secretary General, Bintu Keita, traveled to Kalehe territory in South Kivu province to see firsthand the damage caused by recent torrential rain and heavy flooding. She expressed her condolences and solidarity with the government and the affected populations. More than 450 people died in the floods, and many more are missing, according to official estimates.
Zimbabwe has released about a fifth of all prisoners under a presidential amnesty order meant to decongest the country's overcrowded jails. The Zimbabwe Prison and Correctional Service said that more than 4,000 inmates, mostly men, were let out in what it described as a noble gesture. Violent criminals, as well as those convicted of robbery, treason, and public order offences, were excluded. Prisons in Zimbabwe are suffering from extreme overcrowding. The move is coming ahead of general elections in August. Some 82 Ghanaian police officers have sued the government, accusing it of failing to promote them after they finished their studies under the country's study leave with pay policy. The officers, led by Deputy Inspector Kofi Osal, says that they were denied their deserved promotions as well as entry in police college after the successful completion of their studies during the 2017 and 2018 academic year. They say the move was unfair and unreasonable and asked the Accra High Court to issue an order directing the police service to grant them their promotions. The World Health Organization has released a 2023 edition of its annual World Health Statistics Report with new figures on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and the latest statistics on progress towards the health-related sustainable development goals. That report, with data up to 2022, underscores a stagnation of health progress on key health indicators in recent years when you compare it with trends seen in the year 2000 to 2015. It also highlights the growing threats of non-communicable diseases, the climate change, and calls for a coordinated and strengthened response.
The World Health Statistics Report 2023 is an annual health checkup of the world's population. It represents the latest data and statistics on health-related sustainable development goals and the impact of COVID-19 on human health. The biggest finding that we are reporting for the first time is that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in a staggering loss of approximately 300 million years of life lost globally. And this means about 22 years of life lost for every excess death. We have to do better collectively and work diligently and decisively with actions that we know will improve the health of the populations and make the world better prepared and safer. We have seen remarkable progress despite the setbacks. For example, we have seen improvements in maternal and neonatal deaths. However, the progress needs to be accelerated, because in this day and age, we shouldn't have any mother die due to childbirth, nor we need any child to die from preventable causes. For the first time, this report looks deeper into the impact of climate change on human health. And we have seen that as a result of rising temperatures, we are seeing more foodborne diseases that we had not experienced before. And this is again a clarion call for us all to address this existential threat to human health. And we can definitely collectively do better.
Almost 250,000 people in central Somalia have had to flee their homes after a river flooded the town in Beledweyne. The Hishabelle State and Syrian Minister Abdurrahman Dahir Gure said the people had to shelter under trees after the Shabelle River bursted banks, meaning that 99% of those living in the town and surrounding areas are now homeless. The UN is warning that the floodwaters could also hit Buloberde town, some 110 kilometers away. Climate change is believed to have played a large role, and according to Somali government officials, heavy downpours in Somalia and upstream in the Ethiopian highlands triggered flash floods that washed away homes, crops, and even livestock. Somalia is just starting to recover from the worst drought in several decades after almost 5 successive rainy seasons failed, triggering a near catastrophic humanitarian situation. And back here in Nigeria, the Public Complaints Commission says that it has been inundated with complaints against public hospitals over its handling and treatment of patients. In response to this, it organizes systematic and proactive investigation where beneficiaries of the National Health Insurance Authority have been invited to share their experiences.
It's a meeting between the Public Complaints Commission, the PCC, National Health Insurance Authority, as well as enrollees of the health insurance scheme, who are mostly in the public sector. The PCC believes this is necessary after its investigation, which brings some of the grievances by users of health management organizations, HMOs, and their affiliated hospitals to the fore.
You go to some hospital, they design their own the way they want to do it. If you are telling them that this, they say no until you do this. That is what they tell them what they do here. Maybe because they have collected our money in advance and have chopped the money. They are interested in the one that is coming cash.
I was in the military hospital for almost a whole day. At the end of the day, they were able to diagnose me and said I should get an eye drop. I went to the NHIS office. They said I should get a code. I tried getting that code to no avail. At the end of the day, I was frustrated. So I have to go get the eye drop at the pharmacy.
Complaints compiled. The Chief Commissioner of PCC, Mr. Abimbola Ayo Yusuf, promises swift action.
So, NHI not working properly is administrative issues. So that is why we are there to contact them and do this town meeting. So they too, they will understand what the grievances from the people outside. And the people outside will understand the issues that they have. We've asked for their own issues, was slowing them down, was disturbing them. The public have made their complaints, so we're trying to harmonize the two together.
The meeting ends with a promise by some of the HMOs to upgrade their services and continue to operate with transparency and provide robust benefit packages to the enrollees.
In our Africa Tech segment, the United Nations Population Fund has launched a mobile application to help victims of female genital mutilation report such cases, as well as other gender-based violence cases, anonymously. The application, known as Smart Reporting and Referral, is designed to connect its users to reproductive health services and other service providers using their mobile phones.
This year, 4.3 million girls are at risk of female genital mutilation, according to latest estimates from the United Nations Population Fund and UNICEF. This number is projected to reach 4.6 million by 2030. While the national prevalence of FGM among women in Nigeria within the ages of 15 to 49 dropped from 25% in 2013 to 20% in 2018, prevalence among girls aged 0 to 14 increased from 16.9% to 19.2% in the same period. That's according to figures from the National Demographic and Health Survey. So in a bid to end this harmful practice, UNFPA launches an innovation that would accelerate efforts towards ending FGM in the country.
Of girls who have undergone FGM also varies. We have believed.
The mobile application known as Smart Reporting and Referral will help victims and survivors report such cases as well as other gender-based violence cases anonymously.
SRO, as we refer to it, initiated an innovative project targeting young innovators, especially women and girls, to come up with innovative solutions that will accelerate efforts towards ending gender-based violence and harmful practices by 2030. And of course, following the evaluation process, we had 4 innovators were selected as winners, and we are very fortunate to have one of those winners here from Nigeria. And his name is Samuel Durug. It's a technology-based application to allow survivors, different healthcare providers, social workers to confidentially report on cases, incidents of GBV, female genital mutilation, other health-related issues. We are certain that this new innovation will increase reporting and referral across Nigeria, particularly in the Northeast, around GBV, female genital mutilation, and I know that they have already have the application being rolled out and people have been using the application, and we're seeing some statistics already that is creating some thinking in our head of how we can improve on some of the programs that we're doing in Nigeria.
The app, developed by Durug Samuel and his team, is designed to enhance access and connect its users to information, reproductive health services, and other service providers by way of referral using their mobile phones. Samuel Durug is one of the winners of the UNFPA FGM Hack Lab initiative, which aims to empower young people and offer them the opportunity to be game changers and drivers of a sustainable green future.
The application is becoming a virtual one-stop shop where you access gender-based violence services, FGM services, as well as sexual reproductive health services. So what the app basically does is to enable you identify a service provider within your community and then link you with that service provider confidentially and anonymously as well. So the application helps you to reduce the number of people that are involved in reporting gender-based violence cases or accessing services. You know, sometimes when there is a case in a community, almost the entire community gets to know about it, and that's one of the things that survivors hate. So the Smart RR is there to reduce the number of people that a survivor gets in touch with before accessing services, which means a survivor only gets direct contact with the right person that is to help her or him at the end of the day.
UNFPA FGM Hack Lab initiative is a project that targets young innovators, especially women and girls, who have innovative solutions that will accelerate efforts towards UNFPA's goal of ending gender-based violence and harmful practices by 2030.
With that, we end Network Africa for this week. Thank you so much for watching and being with us. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Have a wonderful weekend and stay safe.